You know how some moments feel completely normal until you realize afterward that they were the beginning of something you'll never be able to forget? That's exactly how it started. I was in the kitchen, still in gym shorts and a hoodie, stirring peanut butter into oatmeal when my roommate yelled from the hallway, "Yo, my dad's staying the night, that cool?" I didn't even look up. Yeah, sure, whatever. I didn't realize I should have asked a few more questions, like where he was planning to sleep. Or why his dad always looked at me like he knew something I didn't. Let me back up, I live with Ethan. We've been roommates for about a year now. He's chill, kind of a gym bro, but surprisingly tidy and easy to live with. We split groceries, joke about each other's dating lives, and occasionally binge watch trash TV when neither of us is pretending to be productive. Just your average mid-20s guy roommate situation. His dad, though, Mark, is a different story. Mark's a retired fire captain who now runs some kind of small business doing home inspections. The guy is built like he never stopped lifting, even though he's probably pushing 50. Always in jeans, work boots, and fitted shirts that make it really hard not to notice the way his arms stretch the sleeves. The first time he visited, I honestly thought he was Ethan's older brother. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed him, or that I hadn't replayed some of our past interactions when I was alone. But he was just Ethan's dad. Off limits, obviously. That night, it was pouring rain when Mark showed up. I was already half asleep on the couch with a throw blanket over me, Netflix still playing something I wasn't really watching. I heard the front door open, Ethan's voice, a few muffled laughs, and then boots on the hardwood. I sat up, rubbing my eyes as they walked in. Mark nodded toward me. "Didn't know you'd still be up," I shrugged. "Wasn't really watching anything, just got lazy." He gave me a quick smile and dropped his duffel near the wall. Ethan peeled off his hoodie and kicked off his shoes. "You mind if he crashes in my bed tonight?" Ethan asked me. "It's more comfortable than the couch," I blinked. "No problem. Where are you sleeping?" Ethan grabbed his keys from the hook. "Jess just texted. I'm staying at her place tonight. Didn't plan on it, but..." He trailed off and smirked like I was supposed to fill in the rest. I just nodded, suddenly wide awake, and then it was just me and Mark. He scratched at his beard and glanced toward the hallway. "I guess that leaves you with the couch tonight, huh?" I laughed lightly. "Looks like it." He tilted his head. "You sure? I mean, you're doing Ethan a favor. I don't mind taking the couch if it's a problem." "Nah," I said. "You're the guest. It's no big deal." He looked at me for a long second, then nodded. "All right, thanks." He disappeared into Ethan's room, and I grabbed my pillow from mine and settled onto the couch. Tried to fall asleep, failed. I tossed around for over an hour. The couch was fine, but my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept thinking about Mark, the way he looked when he came in, his shirt a little wet from the rain, the sound of his laugh when Ethan had made some dumb joke in the doorway, the way he always seemed calm and in control of every room he entered. Eventually, I gave up. Around 2:30 a.m., I stood, grabbed my pillow, and crept down the hall to my bedroom. I opened the door carefully, just planning to grab a sweatshirt or something from my dresser. But the room was dark, and I couldn't see much beyond the silhouette of Mark lying on his back in my bed. "I can sleep on the couch," came his voice, low, a little groggy. I froze in the doorway. "No, it's fine," I whispered. "I just couldn't get comfortable." There was a long pause. I couldn't tell if he was awake or half asleep, but then he shifted to the side and patted the mattress behind him. "There's room, if you don't mind." I should have said no. I know that. But instead, I stepped in, closed the door behind me, and slipped into the bed. He was warm. So much warmer than I expected. We lay there in silence, backs turned to each other. I stared at the ceiling, heart thumping. It was probably innocent. He was probably just being polite. I told myself that over and over, until around 4 a.m. when I woke up, and his arm was draped over me. At first, I thought I was dreaming. That foggy, half-asleep state where nothing quite feels real. I blinked in the darkness, eyes adjusting to the faint glow from the street lamp outside, filtering through my blinds. Mark's arm was across my waist, heavy, warm, and unmistakably real. My first instinct was to freeze, which I did. My mind raced, trying to process the situation. Maybe he rolled over in his sleep. Maybe it was just muscle memory. Someone used to sharing beds from his married days or whatever. But then I felt it. His hand. It wasn't just resting casually. His fingers were slowly, so slowly, moving, tracing a line along the hem of my t-shirt like he was testing if I was awake, or if I'd stop him. My breath caught. I could feel the weight of him behind me now, his chest barely brushing my back. His breath was steady, slow, either he was asleep or pretending to be. I stayed still, not knowing what the hell to do, not sure if I wanted to move, not sure if I could. Then he spoke, quiet, low, right near my ear. "You awake?" I hesitated before answering. "Yeah." He didn't move. Neither did I. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he said. His voice was calm, careful. "I can move if you want." I swallowed. "It's okay." Another pause. Long enough that I almost thought he'd drifted off again. But then, softer. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. That sent a chill down my spine. Not because I was scared, because I suddenly felt like I was standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. Say anything about what? He exhaled slowly. I felt his fingers pause at the edge of my shirt before he let go, pulling his hand back. "This, us, being here. I don't want to cross a line." My heart was hammering now. I couldn't bring myself to look at him. Not yet. I kept my gaze on the ceiling, even though I could barely make out anything in the dark. "There's no line," I said. Quiet, careful, truthful. That's when he shifted closer again. Not all the way, just enough that the warmth of his chest brushed against my back. I didn't move, I couldn't. "You know," he said after a long beat, "I've been wondering about you, since the first time I visited." I turned my head slightly, just enough to hear him better. Wondering what? If you looked at me the same way I looked at you, the air between us changed completely. My whole body tensed, not from fear, but from adrenaline, desire, shock. I didn't know what to say, because I had looked at him plenty of times. I'd noticed the way his forearms tensed when he lifted heavy grocery bags, the way his shirts clung to his back, the way he always made eye contact that lasted a little longer than necessary. And now he was here, in my bed, saying the quiet part out loud. I thought I was imagining it, I admitted. You weren't. He moved his hand again, not touching me, but resting just near my hip. Not pushing, just being there. I could feel the tension in his breath, like he was waiting for a sign. I rolled slightly toward him, not fully, but enough that our legs touched under the covers. And in the stillness of that moment, the electricity between us settled into something quiet but intense, like a wire stretched to its limit, humming with energy. "Mark," I said softly. "Why now?" His hand finally touched me again, fingertips grazing my side. "Because this is the first time I'm not your roommate's dad in the next room," he whispered. I laughed under my breath, half nervous, half amused. "You're still his dad." "Yeah," he said. "But right now, I'm just a man in a bed with another man." The way he said it, so steady, so certain, hit me harder than I expected. His hand moved again, this time slowly up my side, to my ribs, stopping just below my chest. I didn't stop him, didn't flinch. I leaned in just slightly, and then, for the first time, I turned all the way to face him. It was dim, but I could see his expression now. He was studying me, his face close, lips parted slightly like he was about to say something else. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned in, and then his mouth was on mine. The kiss didn't feel like I thought it would. I'd played it out in my head before, fantasy versions of it, usually quick and full of heat. But the real thing, it was slow, careful, like he was testing every second, waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I kissed him back. His lips were warm and rough, the way you'd expect from someone like him. Someone who'd built things with his hands, fought fires, raised a kid, lived a full life, before I even hit legal drinking age. But there was nothing dominant about the way he held me. His touch stayed tentative, fingers resting lightly against my side like he still wasn't sure he was allowed. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us spoke right away. I was the one who broke the silence. "Have you done this before?" Mark looked at me for a second, like he was deciding how honest he wanted to be. "No," he said. "Not really, but that doesn't mean I haven't thought about it." I blinked, surprised at the simplicity of his answer. "Thought about it with me?" He gave a short breath of a laugh. "You don't make it easy, you know, walking around in those little shorts, always barefoot, always smirking at me like you're not doing anything." I laughed, despite myself. I wasn't trying to smirk. "Then it was worse," he said, nudging my side. "Because that means you didn't even know what you were doing to me." The way he said it, low and quiet like it was some shared joke, weighed heavy in the dark. I turned to face him again fully, my leg now pressed against his under the covers. "You really sure about this?" I asked, my voice softer. Mark didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved his hand up, traced his fingers slowly along my jaw, down to my neck, then to my shoulder. "I'm sure that I don't want to regret not doing it," he said. "Even if I don't know where it leads." I nodded, trying to slow the pounding in my chest. "Okay." Then, as if those two syllables were permission, Mark leaned in again. This time, the kiss was deeper. He brought his hand to the back of my head, fingers threading into my hair, pulling me just a little closer. My own hand slid up his side, fingers pressing into the firm muscle of his back. He made a soft sound, a mix of surprise and relief. I couldn't believe how natural it felt. How easy it was to forget that this was my roommate's dad. That just 12 hours ago, he'd been standing in our kitchen making small talk over coffee. Now he was pressed up against me, his breath hitching every time I touched his skin. His shirt had ridden up slightly, and I slid my hand underneath. His stomach was warm and solid, and when my fingers traced lightly along the edge of his hip bone, he sucked in a breath. "Jesus," he murmured. "You're dangerous." I grinned, half breathless. "You started it." "Don't remind me," he said, pulling me in again. Time felt suspended. It was that strange in-between space, when it's still technically night but close enough to morning that the birds haven't started yet, and the sky outside is a heavy gray instead of black. Eventually, Mark rolled onto his back and I shifted, resting my head against his chest. For a while, we just laid there. His hand ran up and down my arm, slow and rhythmic, and I could feel the tension in both of us easing. Not gone, but settling into something else. Something new. "You know," he said, "Ethan's gonna freak if he ever finds out." I closed my eyes and laughed into his chest. "Let's maybe not make this a breakfast table conversation." "No kidding," he said, sighing. Still what?" He hesitated. "Still glad I didn't sleep on the couch." I looked up at him. "Me too." We didn't talk much after that. He drifted off first, one arm still wrapped around me. I stayed awake longer, just listening to his heartbeat and trying to make sense of everything. I knew the morning would come with questions, complications, a whole mess of things I hadn't figured out how to deal with yet. But right then, wrapped up in sheets that still smelled like laundry detergent and heat, with Mark's arm pulling me a little closer in his sleep, I didn't care. I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a split second, I forgot where I was. The weight on my chest, the quiet breathing near my ear, the soft rhythm of someone else's heartbeat. It all clicked a moment later. Mark, he was still there. One leg tangled with mine under the sheets, his face relaxed in sleep, lips parted slightly. His hand rested on my stomach like he hadn't moved all night. I should have panicked. Instead, I just stared at him. He looked different asleep, softer. His usual guarded energy had dissolved into something open, peaceful even. And I hated how badly I wanted to stay in that bed and just watch him like that for a few more hours. But then I heard the front door open. Panic hit like a lightning bolt. Mark's eyes opened instantly, like he'd heard it too. His hand tensed on my stomach, and we both froze. Silent. It was Ethan. His voice echoed from the kitchen. "Yo, you guys up?" Mark looked at me, wide-eyed for the first time since this all started. I whispered, "Bathroom. Now." He nodded, jumped out of bed way too gracefully for someone who just woke up, and grabbed his hoodie off the chair. In one fluid move, he slipped out the bedroom door and down the hall toward the bathroom before Ethan could round the corner. I scrambled to make the bed look less like two people had just shared it, threw on a hoodie and sweatpants, shoved my hair back, and tried to look like I'd just woken up alone. Ethan popped his head into the doorway a second later. "Morning," he said, stretching. "Hey," I replied, my voice crackly and sleep-heavy. Real enough. "Dad still here?" "Yeah. I think he's in the bathroom," he nodded, rubbing his eyes. "Last night ran late. Jess had a fight with her roommate. We ended up watching movies until like 3 a.m., I nodded slowly. "Rough night?" He grinned. "Nothing a bagel can't fix. You want one?" "Sure," I said, standing and following him to the kitchen. Every nerve in my body was still buzzing, but I forced myself to act normal. Just a regular Saturday morning with my roommate, eating bagels like I hadn't made out with his dad 5 hours ago. Mark came out of the bathroom a few minutes later, freshly showered, back in his usual uniform of jeans and a button-down. He played it cool. Too cool, like he hadn't even seen me yet today. Ethan tossed him a bottle of cold brew. "You sleep okay?" Mark nodded, taking a sip. "Like a rock. Your bed's better than mine at home." I kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. Ethan grabbed the remote and flopped onto the couch. "You guys want to watch something?" "I've got nothing planned today." Mark glanced at me, then back at Ethan. "I actually need to head out soon. Got an early job tomorrow." "You're always working," Ethan muttered. "That's how you pay rent, son." They shared a quick back and forth while I silently chewed my bagel, trying not to look at either of them too long. Mark gave me a subtle nod on his way to grab his duffel, and I knew exactly what it meant. Meet me outside. 2 minutes later, I slipped out the front door under the excuse of checking the mail. Mark was waiting by his truck. Neither of us said anything at first. Then he gave me a look, half smile, half nervous. "You okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Are you?" He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't plan on that happening. "Yeah, me neither." He looked at me then, serious. "But I'm not sorry." Neither was I. But I didn't know what to do with that truth. "You think Ethan suspects anything?" I asked. Mark shook his head. "Not unless we screw up." "And this?" I paused, searching his face. "Was it just a one-time thing?" He looked away for a moment, then back. "Do you want it to be?" I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure what to say. My stomach twisted with confusion and want. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I just know I haven't stopped thinking about it." Mark stepped a little closer. "Look, I don't know what this is. I'm not even sure what I want. But I know I felt something last night. Something real." I nodded slowly. "Me too." He exhaled and glanced back toward the apartment. "This is complicated." "Yeah, but maybe complicated isn't always bad." He looked at me like he was seeing me fully for the first time, then reached out and gently touched my arm. "I'll text you," he said. And then he climbed into his truck, gave me one last glance, and drove off. I stood there, long after Mark's truck disappeared down the street. The morning air felt colder now, sharper, like the weight of what had happened was finally catching up to me. I wasn't sure if I felt guilty or exhilarated. Probably both. When I went back inside, Ethan was still on the couch, flipping through Netflix like it was his job. He barely glanced at me. "You look like you just came back from war," he joked, mouth full of bagel. I laughed it off. "Just tired." He shrugged and kept scrolling. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the kitchen, worked on a paper, even went for a run, but I kept checking my phone like a teenager waiting on a crush. Every buzz sent a spike through my chest. But nothing. No text. No missed calls. Nothing from Mark. By 10 p.m., I'd convinced myself it had been a one-time thing. Maybe the moment got to him. Maybe he regretted it. Hell, maybe I should have regretted it. But I didn't. And then, just as I was brushing my teeth, my phone lit up. "Mark, you free tomorrow?" I stared at the screen for a second before typing back. "Me? Yeah, after 4. His reply came instantly. "Mark, come by the inspection site on 8th and Alder. No one will be there after 5. I'll wait. My heart was pounding again, but this time, it wasn't panic. It was anticipation. The next day, I spent hours trying not to overthink it. I told Ethan I had a group study thing, threw on something casual but not too casual, and Ubered to the address just before 5. It was a small commercial space, some rundown storefront with faded signage and boarded up windows, the kind of place you'd never look at twice. Mark's truck was parked out front. He met me at the side entrance, keys in hand, and led me through a dim hallway into what looked like an empty office space. "You sure this place is safe?" I asked, half joking. He smirked. "I checked the structural integrity myself. You're good." The joke eased some of the tension, but the air between us was still thick, with something we hadn't defined yet. He locked the door behind us, and we stood there, staring at each other like we were both waiting for the other to say something first. "You came," he finally said. "Yeah," I replied. "You asked." Another beat of silence passed. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me again," he said. "After everything." I stepped closer. "I wasn't sure if you would." He shook his head. That night, it wasn't just a moment. Not for me. I didn't know what to say to that. Not yet. So instead, I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. We stood like that, hand in hand, in the middle of an empty building, surrounded by dust and silence and uncertainty. And yet, I felt more grounded than I had in days. Mark looked at me, really looked, and then asked, "What are we doing?" I smiled, small but honest. "I don't know, but I want to find out." That was enough for him. He pulled me in. Not rushed, not frantic, just sure. His hand slid around my waist and our foreheads touched before he kissed me, slow and deep, like he hadn't stopped thinking about it since it happened. Like maybe he'd been fighting it even longer than I had. This wasn't just tension anymore. It was something real, something growing. And as I pressed my hands to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, I knew this wasn't going to be the last time I saw him like this. We stayed in that old inspection site for over an hour, neither of us in a rush to leave. At first, it was just us standing in the middle of the room, touching, kissing, exploring the unspoken space between comfort and hesitation. But then, Mark led me over to a dusty bench beneath the front window, and we sat side by side like kids on a first date who didn't know what came next. He rubbed his palms together like he was nervous. "I'm not exactly good at this." "At what?" I asked. "This, whatever this is." He looked at me, searching. I've only ever been with women. Never even let myself consider anything else until me? I asked. Half a joke, half serious. He nodded. Yeah. The silence after that felt heavy, but not in a bad way. Like we both knew what we were getting into now. I rested my head against the cold wall behind us. "So what do we do?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I don't know. I don't even know how to talk about this with myself, let alone anyone else. It's not like I can just tell Ethan I." He stopped short. I didn't press, but the weight of Ethan's name between us hung there, unspoken and undeniable. "That's the hard part, isn't it?" I said. "He has no idea, and he can't." Mark nodded slowly. "Not yet." He looked tired when he said it, not physically, but like he was carrying the full weight of what it meant to feel something real and not be able to share it. "I'm not asking for anything serious," I said gently. "Not a label, not a decision. Just don't pretend it didn't happen." His gaze lifted to mine. I couldn't pretend, even if I wanted to. For a while, we just sat there, side by side, sharing silence and proximity. Eventually, he walked me out. We didn't kiss again, not outside, not under the gray sky with the wind picking up, but he touched my back as I walked ahead of him. His hand lingered longer than necessary when I turned to leave. He didn't say, "I'll text you," this time. He said, "I want to see you again, soon." I didn't expect soon to mean 2 days later. Tuesday night, Ethan was out late at the gym, and I was halfway through making pasta when my phone buzzed. "Mark, I'm 5 minutes away. Can I stop by?" My heart jumped straight into my throat. I glanced around the apartment like it would give me an answer. No Ethan. No reason to say no. Me, yeah, Come in through the back. Doors open. I barely had time to check the mirror when I heard the soft creak of the back door. Mark stepped in, wearing dark jeans and a black long-sleeve shirt. His hair was damp like he'd just showered, and he smelled like cedar wood and something crisp and clean. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. "You really couldn't wait?" He shrugged, half smiling. "Nope. We didn't even make it to the couch." One look, and he was in front of me, hands on my face, mouth on mine like he'd been starving for it. It wasn't the cautious, measured kiss from the first night. It was full of want, hunger. His hand slipped under my shirt, his breath ragged, and I lost myself in it. He walked me backwards until the backs of my legs hit the kitchen counter. His hands didn't stop roaming. I heard myself say his name more than once, not in warning, not in fear, just as a way to keep grounded. "Mark," I whispered, breathless. "What are we doing?" He pressed his forehead against mine. "Something I should have done the first night I saw you." And then he kissed me again, slower now, more focused, like he was committing the taste of me to memory. I wasn't sure how long we stayed there. Time felt irrelevant. All I knew was that when I finally pulled back and looked into his eyes, there was no hesitation left, no confusion, just heat, want, and something dangerously close to affection. We barely spoke as he left. Just a quiet, whispered, "Lock the door behind me," and a look that said everything else. I stood there in the kitchen long after he was gone, still leaning against the counter where he'd had me pinned. My shirt was crooked, my lips swollen, my heart racing, and even though I knew the situation was impossible, I wanted him again. The next few weeks were a blur. Mark and I fell into a rhythm, though it was anything but steady. He'd text when he could. We'd meet up when Ethan wasn't around. Empty houses, his truck, the occasional excuse to drop something off at our apartment when Ethan was at class or at the gym. Every time felt different, sometimes rushed, like we were on the verge of getting caught. Other times quiet, tender. I started noticing how he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, like he wanted to say something but didn't quite have the words. One night, after he'd stopped by and we were tangled together in the backseat of his truck on some random side street, I finally asked, "Are we just chillin'?" He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Do you want it to be just that?" "No," I said. He nodded like he already knew. "Neither do I." It should have made me feel better, but instead, it left me more confused. Because we still hadn't talked about Ethan, about the impossibility of it all, about what this actually was. Then came the night that changed everything. Ethan was out of town for the weekend. Something about a bachelor party and a rented cabin. The second he left, Mark texted me, "Come over." No hesitation, no worry. Just 3 words that hit like a punch to the chest. His place was quiet when I got there, warm lighting, a record playing low in the background. I walked in like I belonged there, and when he pulled me into his arms, it felt like I did. We didn't have to close that night. We just existed together. He made dinner, we drank wine. We sat on the couch, my head resting on his shoulder while he absent-mindedly ran his fingers through my hair. It felt alarmingly domestic, alarmingly right. And sometime after midnight, when we were still curled up on his couch, I said it without even realizing the words were coming out. "I think I'm falling for you." Mark froze. I didn't take it back. He didn't speak right away. He didn't smile. He didn't brush it off. Instead, after what felt like a full minute, he reached for my hand and held it like he needed the anchor. "I already have," he said quietly. That moment changed everything. Because once the feelings were out there, neither of us could pretend anymore. We weren't just sneaking around. This wasn't just tension or chemistry. It was something we were both holding on to like it might disappear if we didn't. And it made the risk feel real. The next morning, I woke up in his bed. Mark was already up, making coffee in the kitchen, bare-chested, looking way too good for someone his age. I stood in the doorway, watching him for a second, heart full and terrified. He turned and smiled when he saw me. "Stay for breakfast?" I nodded. But as I sat at the table, coffee in hand, I knew something had shifted. This couldn't stay in the shadows forever. We couldn't keep pretending that it wasn't a big deal, because it was, it is. Sunday night, Ethan came back. I was in the kitchen, pretending to do dishes, heart still tangled up in the night before. Mark hadn't texted all day, which I understood. He needed space to think. We both did. But part of me wondered if that silence meant he was having second thoughts. Ethan dumped his bag by the door and immediately raided the fridge. "Dude, I missed real food," he said, pulling out leftovers. "Jess's cousin made the worst chili I've ever had in my life." I nodded, drying my hands. "Glad you survived." He popped the container in the microwave, then turned and leaned on the counter, watching me. "You do anything fun this weekend?" I paused. "Just hung around." He narrowed his eyes, playfully. "You never leave the apartment for 2 straight days unless someone's distracting you." I forced a smile. Maybe I just needed time to recharge. He grinned, but it didn't last. "You okay? You seem, I don't know, different." "I'm fine." He watched me for another beat. "Okay, just checking." That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep this going. Not like this, not sneaking around, not lying to someone who trusted me enough to live under the same roof. Later that night, after Ethan went to bed, I stood in the living room staring at my phone for a solid 20 minutes before finally typing, "Me. We need to talk, all 3 of us." Mark didn't reply right away, but 15 minutes later, he called. "I figured this was coming," he said. "I can't lie to him anymore." "I know." There was a long silence on the line. I could hear him breathing, the faint clink of glass in the background. Then he said, "Come over tomorrow. I'll talk to him first." The next evening, I got to Mark's place just after 6. His truck was parked out front. Ethan's car was already in the driveway. My heart was hammering. I almost didn't knock. But then the door opened. It was Ethan. His face was tight. Not angry, just confused, cautious, hurt. "Come in," he said. His voice was quiet. Mark stood behind him in the hallway, his expression unreadable. I stepped inside. Every nerve in my body lit up like a warning system. We sat in the living room. Ethan didn't say anything at first, just looked between us, waiting. Mark spoke first. "I told him," he said. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "So let me get this straight. You two had something while I was out of the house? While you were staying in my room?" I swallowed hard. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." He laughed, bitter. "Yeah, that makes it so much better." Mark tried to jump in, but Ethan held up a hand. "No, I want to hear it from you," he said, staring at me. "What is this? Just a fling?" "No," I said instantly. "It's not." "Then what?" I looked down at my hands, something I didn't expect, but it's real, and I care about him. Ethan leaned back, still watching me. "You couldn't have told me before it turned into this?" "We didn't know what it was," I said, "and once we figured it out, it was already complicated." He didn't respond for a moment. Then, "You know what the worst part is?" I shook my head. "I'm not mad that it happened. I'm mad you both hid it from me." Mark finally spoke. "That was on me. I should have handled it better." Ethan looked at his dad. "You think?" Mark sighed, rubbing his face. "I never meant to hurt you, kid. But I met someone I didn't expect. Someone who makes me feel alive in a way I haven't in years." Ethan shook his head, like he didn't want to hear it. But he didn't walk away. After a long beat, he stood up. "I need space," he said. "From both of you." We nodded. He grabbed his keys and left without another word. That night, Mark and I sat on the couch, not touching, not kissing, just quiet. "You okay?" he asked after a while. "No," I admitted, "but I will be." He nodded. "He'll come around. He just needs time." I looked over at him. "Do you ever regret this?" He paused, then looked straight at me. "No, not for 1 second." It's been a month. Ethan and I talk, but it's not the same. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But he's coming around. He even asked me last week if I was still seeing his dad, which is the most awkward sentence ever spoken, but I appreciated the attempt at normal. And yeah, I'm still seeing Mark. Sometimes it's at his place, sometimes he stays at mine. It's not perfect, it's not easy, but it's real. And it all started the night he slept in my bed.